Hola everyone and welcome to Play It Like Dimebag lesson number 10. Today we're gonna go through all the riffs and some sort of solo version of Becoming by PanterA. This is an iconic song with I believe a lot of misunderstanding or misplaying with it. So I'll try to show you how I think it is and how I think Dimebag played it. So let's do that. So first off, we got the intro. It's a pretty simple one. You play a power chord, 6th position on the A string, adding the low 5th on the E string. That would make this badass metal power chord. So you play this one with an alternate picking starting with the downstroke, and the rhythm would sound like this. And then comes the iconic part, this one. So for this one, you need a Digitech or some sort of whammy pedal. I tried it out with some other whammy pedals or even other versions of the Digitech, and they just don't sound to my ears the same. And it's also a feel thing. But anyways, just play with whatever you have. Set it up for a 2-octave jump. Up and not down, of course. And the notes are pretty simple. Play 2 muted power chord on the E string. And then on the 3rd fret of the A string, you play an octave on the G5. And at the same time, you hit the whammy pedal and just go up 2 octaves. On the record, the studio version starts right up there. But live, you could kind of hear the jump when it's going up. Instead of... you can hear that curve that he played there. I think it's pretty fun to play with these two to give some sort of a contrast to it. But also, there's one trick adding to this one, is that you don't only play this octave thing here, but also add some pinched harmonics there on both strings. It just makes it a little more noisy, dirty, and it just adds up at the end, and it just gives a better sound to it, or a different sound to it. Instead of... On the other hand, it's a little harder to hear in the mix, so it goes buried a little bit. But that's the way it is. The next part after this one is a slide down from the 4th fret of the E string with the power chord down to the 2nd or the 1st fret. It doesn't really stop on a specific note, but it starts off the 4th. And while you're switching to the slide down part, you also lower or just pull down or step down on the whammy pedal and start to release that note. So it's just a very quick movement. If you do it too fast, then you can really hear the slide down, and you don't want to do that. You want to have something in between, more messy, more dirty again. It's just the color there. It's not actual pitch. It's just a sound that you make there. After the slide, there's the 2 mutings. The same 2 power chords that you muted before. The second time, you start with the same sliding. But at this time, of course, you don't use the whammy pedal, and you can therefore hear the slides. You can actually kind of hear that it stops on the 2nd fret. But it's not too squared. It's in between stopping there and moving forward. So it's a feel thing as well, as always with Dimebag and PanterA. And then, right after the second time, when you slide down, you go immediately up. 2 mutings on the open E string power chord, and then on the 2nd fret, and end up on the 4th fret with a power chord on the E string. So together. Well, that's about it. Awesome. After this main riff, we got the verse coming in, and that's a pretty cool riff as well, in my opinion. And it's also something that I see people playing in, I believe, in the wrong way. You start with the same 2 mutings, like in the main riff. And then comes the sliding part. And the notes are the 2nd fret on the A string and the D string, and you slide that down, but you also pick the E string as well at the same time. So, and you slide down a half a note and then immediately slide back. And right after you come back to the 2nd fret, you play a muted open E power chord again. But again, first you also pick the open E string, and while you're coming up, you kind of mute the E string, so while you're coming back, you just slightly touch the open E string, and therefore you mute it at the same time. And then you repeat it twice. Yeah, so it's all together, it's 3 times. And the last time, after you slide down, instead of sliding back with the same shape, you play that open E power chord muted, and then the 2nd fret with the power chord also muted, and then open up on the 4th fret of the E string with the same power chord. So together, slowly. And now let's see the chorus. So we ended up on the 4th fret, and from there you slide up to the 8th fret of the E string, play the power chord. So you actually can hear that slide, and then go down a whole note, and then drop it to the 1st fret and play a muted power chord, and then an open E power chord. So together. That's the first 4 notes, and then you end up on the first actual note that we start this song with. This heavy power chord, adding the low 5th there. So together. Live sometimes, or most of the times actually, from the footages I've seen, Dime did not mute the 1st and fret and the open E power chord. So I would sound it like this. And you could also hear the slide up there. And then after that first note of the song, you slide up on the E string from around the 2nd or the 3rd fret. It's a chromatic thing, coming down from the 8th fret to the 6th. It sounds different if you use, for vibratos, the index finger than any other fingers. Because if you would use the ring finger, you could overemphasize it easily. And this way it's just sound more authentic. There's some pinched harmonics added there as well. Not all the way, not really hardcore pinched harmonics, but they are there. And also there's a fun trick, and that is that he did not make these pinched harmonics on the same spot, but instead it was moving upwards in a sense that if you go towards the bridge or the floridors or whatever, it goes higher pitch-wise. As you can see, there's several pinch harmonics for one note and one string. And what he did is, and it's a fun effect that he used to do a lot, is that he was moving downwards on the note scale, and with the pinched harmonics he was going up, and that gives an extra twist to it, which I think is pretty cool. Depending on the guitar and the scale and everything, you can find all these pinch harmonics. For me, the first one is around somewhere above the pick guard, and then just slightly to this direction for the second note, and then for the last one even a little further. Find it on your own guitar and with your own sound. And then you repeat, you play those two muted notes, the first fret and the open E power chord, both power chords, and then up there. After the second time there's also a slide up, but now it's from the 6th fret. Same thing, then the same thing. Together. I accidentally played with the ring finger, and you could tell that it was a different, wider, heavier vibrato, which is cool, I like it, but it's not as authentic if you would use the index finger. Well, talking about this solo is quite a challenge because it's really a feel thing there. There's some things that he used to play which I can point out, but it's more of a direction to follow, and it's all about the ear and the connection between what you hear here and what you feel, how you translate it to your feet and play it with the whammy bar and the whammy pedal at the same time. So I'm gonna show a way of how I usually go around, but it always changes, and it's good like that. I quite enjoyed that fact with Dimebag, that there was always space for improvisation and for the moment, so to say. I think it's also a fun thing that you're not framed too much. With all that being said, I usually start a similar way how he did on the official live record, which is just a big dive bomb on the open E string. And just drop it. You could also notice that I didn't only just go down, oops, but I also pushed it down, so it went up sharper, and then I started to descend that note. So this is the first how I start, and then I usually add a time squeal either on the low E string, and while coming up with the whammy bar, just pushing it down. If you play it this way, you can be more aggressive and yet have more control in some ways playing this direction. Of course, you have to get used to it. The shape of the guitar counts a lot when you play it like this. If you have a weird shape, big ass guitar like this one or similar one, it's easier to do it like with a super stretch shape or anything like that, because then the body starts to move all over the place and you cannot really force it to stay there. So that's why it's also easier to play it like that with this guitar. So anyways, while you're coming up, you also push down the whammy pedal as well. So you come up with this dive bomb. And if I started on the low E string, I usually change along the way and do another quick dive on the G12. And at some point I just go all the way down and start to go crazy with that. And that's what gives that effect. That's how you can jump from a very low pitched note to a very high one. And that contrast is what you're aiming for, or what you should aim for. And at the same time, I don't only just push it down, but I start to push and pull back. So without the whammy, it would sound like this with one string. When I do that big jump at the end, I usually do another dime squeal. So just to make sure that you go really high up. And then the whammy pedal is all the way down. So you should just learn this, how to sync them together. And it doesn't have to be the same all the time. You just have to understand and learn to handle the two things together. So it's intentional what you do. Oops. So after you go really high up, I usually start to go back with this crazy pull and push thing, and also I drop the whammy at the same time. As you could hear at the end probably. And then comes a very tricky part. It's also a descending thing where you would want to start really high up. And along the way you just can't drop it. Or an easier way to do that is just to find a note around this, the 12th fret of the G string. And just go down there, like for example you could be in the 10th position, 12 and 10th and stuff like that. And at the end you do the same thing. It's not actual notes, it's a feel thing. And usually I just start to come up from around the G12. And then I slide down and slide back up. And the last note, which I usually play, is the 22nd fret on the B string. And instead of bending that note up, I usually bend that up with the whammy bar, not with the fingers. So, and if you add the whammy pedal there, then it goes really high up. So together, I'm just gonna show it itself in a way. That's pretty much the solo. The very last riff, 2 open E power chords, and then you repeat that 3 times all together, and then you come up to the 2nd fret and the 4th fret, and again it's the open E power chord and the 2nd fret power chord that you mute, and the 4th is open. Up until the last note, you drop after you play the 4th note. So you can hear that slide down. By dropping, I mean a slide down. And that's about it. Thank you very much for checking in. I hope that you enjoyed this video and maybe even learned something. If you have any questions, just feel free to leave a comment in the comment section, or you can also suggest a song which would you want to learn, or which riff that you are not so certain about, or you see people playing it wrong. And also, if you like what you hear and see, Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell as well, because I'm uploading videos every week. I also have a Patreon site if you want to support in my underground journey and goal of fulfilling and making all of time solos within a year. And more details if you click on the link below. And I guess that's about it, and I'll see you next week, next time. Until then, be safe and have a lovely day. Ciao. On the whammy pedal, you have to set it up for a 2-octave. Hope everyone is fine and well.